I still remember the exact sound of the knock. It wasn't impatient or aggressive, just 3 calm, deliberate taps that echoed through my hallway like a warning. That morning had started like any other, coffee brewing, mail piling up on the counter. I was halfway through replying to a work email when I heard that knock. And when I opened the door, a man I'd never seen before stood on my porch, holding a thick envelope. He smiled like he already knew me. "Morning," he said. "You must be Michael. I'm Daniel Porter, the new owner." I actually laughed, thinking he'd mixed up the address. "The new owner, I'm sorry, but this is my house." He looked confused, almost hurt, then he opened the envelope. Inside were printed documents, legal-looking ones, stamped and signed, showing a property transfer. My name, my address, and a forged signature that looked almost like mine. I felt my stomach drop. "What is this? Who gave you these?" He sighed. "The seller, you apparently. I closed the deal last week." For a few seconds, all I could do was stare at him, the man standing on my porch, claiming my home like it was nothing. I told him there must have been a mistake, that I never sold anything, that I'd lived here for 7 years, but he didn't back off. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small keychain, the exact model of my front door key. That's when I realized how deep this went. Someone had not only faked my signature, they'd duplicated my house key. Daniel wasn't aggressive, but he wasn't leaving either. "I don't want trouble," he said, "but I've paid for this place. I've moved my stuff into the garage. You can check." I did. And sure enough, when I walked around the side of my house, I saw a moving truck, half-unloaded boxes, labeled with his name. "How the hell did you get access?" I demanded. He pointed at the side door, the one I rarely used. The lock was scratched but not broken. "Your realtor gave me the spare key," he said simply. I didn't have a realtor. My heart began pounding. There was something horribly wrong here, not just a mix-up but a deliberate setup. Someone had impersonated me, sold my home, and handed this man every right to claim it. That night I couldn't sleep. The police told me to stay calm and that they'd look into it, but even they sounded unsure. The officer, a young guy named Briggs, asked if I had enemies. I didn't, not really. I kept to myself, worked from home, paid my bills. But that's the thing about quiet lives, they make you forget how quickly everything can crumble. I spent hours digging through my files, mortgage papers, property tax receipts, insurance forms, all proof that I still own this house. But when I tried to access my online mortgage account, I couldn't log in. My password had been changed. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. 2 days later, things got worse. Daniel came back, this time with a woman. She was wearing a blazer, confident, sharp-eyed, his real estate agent apparently. "Mr. Hensley," she said coolly, "you're trespassing on property that no longer belongs to you. We'll give you 48 hours to vacate." I nearly laughed in disbelief. "You people have lost your minds. This is my home. I've never sold anything." She smiled tightly. "You'll have to take that up with the title company. They confirmed your signature." I could feel the anger boiling up inside me, not just at them but at the sheer audacity of this nightmare. They were standing on my porch, holding fake papers, trying to evict me. But there was something strange about the woman's tone. Too calm, too confident, like she'd seen this happen before. That night I called my neighbor Grace, a retired nurse who'd lived 2 houses down for decades. She was the kind of person who noticed everything, from who watered their plants to who parked in whose driveway. When I told her what was happening, she went quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Michael, you're not the first." That chilled me. "What do you mean?" "Last year the same thing happened to the couple on Redwood Drive," she said. "Someone forged their papers, claimed ownership, and they were gone within a month, moved away overnight, or so we were told." I didn't sleep that night either. The next morning I found something new taped to my door, an official notice. Transfer of occupancy, new owner possession in 72 hours. My hands trembled as I read it. How could this happen so fast? No court hearing, no verification, just a piece of paper deciding my fate. That's when I decided to fight back. I started calling everyone, the county clerk, the title office, the police again, but each department passed me to another. Finally, one quiet voice on the line told me something that made my blood run cold. Mr. Hensley, according to our system, you did sell your house. The deed transfer was verified with your driver's license. My license, I said, it was never. Then it hit me. Last month my wallet had gone missing for 2 days. I thought I'd misplaced it. Someone must have taken it, scanned my ID, and used it for the sale. It was all premeditated. That evening I saw Daniel again, in my driveway this time, unloading furniture. Daniel, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, I don't blame you, you're a victim too, but this isn't over. He looked uneasy. Look man, I just followed the paperwork, I don't want to fight. Then don't, I said, help me find out who sold it to you. He hesitated, then he said something strange. I never actually met the seller, it was all done through an online platform. The notary came to me. Online, of course. The easiest way to fake a transaction, with remote verification and digital documents. That night, while scrolling through my old emails, I found something buried in my spam folder, a message from a fake real estate firm. It used my name, my property address, and a strange subject line, "Congratulations on your successful sale." It had been sent 2 weeks ago. My heart pounded as I opened the message. Inside was a contract identical to the one Daniel had shown me, with a digital signature that matched mine perfectly. Whoever had done this had access to everything: my ID, my email, my mortgage login. Someone wasn't just trying to take my home, they wanted to erase me entirely. The next morning, I noticed a car parked across the street. A black sedan, unmarked, sitting there quietly with tinted windows. At first I ignored it, then I realized it hadn't moved all day. When I stepped outside, I saw a shadow shift behind the windshield. Someone was watching. I called out, "Hey, can I help you?" but the car slowly rolled away. I told myself it was paranoia, but that night I heard the faint click of my backyard gate. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside. The night air was cold, silent. Then I saw footprints in the grass, fresh ones, leading straight to my back door. And taped to the door handle was another note. It wasn't official, it wasn't printed, it was handwritten in messy black ink. It said, "You shouldn't have checked the emails." I froze. Someone was here, watching me. They knew what I'd seen, maybe even that I'd started fighting back. I rushed inside and locked every door, every window, every latch. I called the police again, but by the time they arrived, the footprints were gone. The officer who showed up this time was older, calmer. He looked at the note, then at me. "Mr. Hensley," he said quietly, "if someone went to this length, it's not about property anymore, it's personal." Personal. The word stuck in my mind like a splinter. Who could possibly want this? Over the next few days, everything spiraled faster. I received a court summons claiming I was illegally occupying private property. My utilities were shut off due to ownership change. And Daniel, the so-called new owner, started getting calls too. Strange ones, anonymous numbers, whispering voices telling him to stay away. He came to see me one last time. "Look man," he said, his eyes tired. "I think someone playing both of us. I don't even know if the money I paid went to the real seller." "Then let's find out," I said. He nodded slowly. "All right, but there's something you should know. The agent who handled my sale, she disappeared 2 days ago." I stared at him. "What do you mean disappeared?" "She's gone, her office is empty, her phone's disconnected, it's like she never existed." And that's when I realized this wasn't just fraud. It was a trap. That night I drove to the title company myself. The office was closed, but through the glass doors I saw a light still on in the back. I knocked. After a moment, a woman appeared, maybe in her 50s, nervous eyes holding a folder. When I told her my name, she froze. "You need to leave," she whispered, "they'll be watching." "Who?" I asked. She shook her head. "This goes higher than you think, it's not just your house, Mr. Hensley, it's a whole block." Before I could ask another word, she closed the blinds and turned off the light. I stood there in the dark parking lot, the silence pressing in. My house, my life had been stolen, and now I wasn't even sure who the enemy was. But I knew one thing for certain. Whoever they were still out there, watching. And they weren't done yet. The next morning the air outside felt heavier. The neighborhood, usually full of joggers, sprinklers, and kids waiting for the school bus, was unusually still. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. I barely slept. Every creak in the house sounded like footsteps. Every passing car made me flinch, but I couldn't afford to fall apart, not now. The woman's words kept replaying in my mind. It's not just your house, it's a whole block. That sentence changed everything. If she was telling the truth, then this wasn't some random identity theft. It was organized, planned, a system, and maybe my neighbors knew something. I started with Grace. She was already on her porch watering her plants like she always did. But when she saw me walking over, her smile faltered. "Michael," she said softly, "you shouldn't be outside right now." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked over her shoulder, almost like she expected someone to be watching. "I saw a man parked near your house last night," she said. "He wasn't one of us, black car, windows tinted." My stomach tightened. "I saw him too," I said. "Do you know who he is?" She shook her head. "But he's been around before, after the Redwood couple disappeared." The way she said disappeared sent a chill through me. "Grace," I said carefully, "who owned their home before." She hesitated, then went inside. When she came back, she was holding an old HOA newsletter. The page listed community updates, repairs, upcoming events, property transfers. There near the bottom was a familiar name. Redwood Drive sold to Porter Development Group. Porter. Daniel's last name. When I called him, he sounded shaken. "Michael, I was going to tell you, I think my purchase wasn't from a person at all. It was from a company, Porter Development Group. They said they handle distressed properties." "Distressed?" I asked. "My house isn't distressed." "I know, that's the weird part." I took a deep breath. "Do you have any documents from them?" He hesitated. "Yeah, a few. The signatures all look digital, but one page has an actual name, the notary who approved the sale, Rebecca Lane." That name sent a jolt through me. It was familiar, too familiar. I ran to my desk, pulled open an old folder, the paperwork from when I first bought my house 7 years ago. There it was again. Notary Rebecca Lane. The same person who verified my original purchase had now certified the fake sale. That couldn't be coincidence. I tracked down her name online, dozens of records, old business listings, real estate closures, but none recent. The last trace of her was from 6 months ago, connected to a company called Titan Realty Trust. A company that didn't exist anymore. Or maybe never did. By late afternoon, Daniel came over. We sat in my dimly lit living room, blinds half drawn, the weight of paranoia thick in the air. He slid a flash drive across the table. "Here, everything I have on the sale, emails, contracts, timestamps." I plugged it into my laptop and started scrolling through the documents. At first, everything looked official, digital seals, timestamps, even confirmation codes from the county office. But then, at the bottom of one file, I saw something strange. In small print, buried deep in the metadata, there was a hidden comment. "Verification file, Lot 17B, Phase 2, pending occupancy clearance." Lot 17B. That wasn't my address, but I knew it. It belonged to the empty house across the street. The house had been vacant for over a year. No one moved in or out. But suddenly it had meaning, connected to the fraud, maybe even to the people behind it. That night I couldn't resist. I took a flashlight and crossed the street. The grass was overgrown, the mailbox stuffed with old flyers, the for sale sign still half buried in dirt. I tried the door, locked. But when I peered through the window, I saw something that made my skin crawl, a row of boxes stacked neatly in the foyer. Each one was labeled with house numbers, not addresses, just numbers. One of them said 17A. Mine. Suddenly I heard a noise behind me, the sound of gravel crunching under shoes. "Looking for something." It was a man's voice, low, calm. I turned around slowly. The black sedan from before was parked at the curb. The man from inside was standing next to it, tall, wearing a dark jacket, expressionless. I swallowed hard. "Who are you?" He stepped closer. "You shouldn't be here." "This is my neighborhood," I said. "You've been watching me." He smiled faintly. "You still think it's your neighborhood?" Something about the way he said it made my blood run cold. Then he handed me a folded paper. Consider this a warning. Before I could speak, he got back into his car and drove off, quiet, smooth, as if he'd rehearsed it. I opened the paper. It wasn't a threat, it was worse. It was a deed transfer form for the empty house, signed by me. I went straight back inside, locked the doors, and sat on the floor shaking. This wasn't just about my house anymore. They were replicating ownership, property after property, using forged identities, fake companies, even duplicate notarizations. They weren't stealing homes, they were creating a network of false ownership, one that looked legitimate on paper. And somehow I'd become the key to it. The next day, I met with Officer Briggs again, the one who'd handled my first complaint. He listened, skeptical but concerned. When I showed him the flash drive, he frowned. "Where did you get all this?" "From Daniel, the buyer. He didn't know it was fake." Briggs nodded slowly. "All right, I'll check it out, but I'll be honest, if this is what it looks like, you're not the only victim. These operations can involve county insiders, data brokers, even title officials." "Insiders," I repeated. He nodded. "Someone has to approve these transfers, someone inside the system." That explained the woman at the title company and why she was terrified. When I got home that evening, my front door was slightly ajar. I froze. The lights inside were off. The air felt wrong, heavy, still, like the house was holding its breath. "Hello," I called. No answer. I stepped inside carefully, heart racing. Then I saw it. My living room was exactly as I'd left it, except for one thing. My family photos, every single frame had been turned face down. On the table lay a small envelope with no markings. Inside was a flash drive, identical to the one Daniel gave me. No note, no explanation. I plugged it into my laptop. At first just a black screen, then a video started playing. It was grainy surveillance footage of me, sitting at my desk drinking coffee, working. The timestamp said 2 days ago. Someone had been inside my house recording me. I slammed the laptop shut, my pulse roaring in my ears. I called Daniel immediately. He didn't pick up. When I drove to his house, the driveway was empty, his truck, his boxes gone. I knocked, no answer. The neighbors hadn't seen him leave. It was like he'd vanished, just like the realtor. And that's when I started to wonder, maybe he hadn't been a victim at all. I couldn't trust anyone now. Even Grace had gone silent, her lights off, her curtains drawn. That night I went back through the surveillance video frame by frame. At the very end, something flickered in the reflection of a mirror behind me, a shadow, a figure. It was Daniel. It wasn't anyone I knew. The frame froze for a second, and I caught a partial glimpse of the person's face. Female, blonde, wearing a dark blazer. Rebecca Lane. The notary who disappeared. She wasn't gone, she was here. I didn't sleep that night. I packed a bag, grabbed the flash drives, and drove to the police station first thing in the morning. But when I got there, Officer Briggs wasn't on duty. The desk sergeant said he'd been transferred, no forwarding info. Transferred, just like my house. I felt like the ground was falling away beneath me. Before I left, the sergeant handed me a slip of paper. "Someone left this for you earlier," he said. It was a note. In the same handwriting as before. "Stop digging, Michael, or you'll lose more than your home." By the time I got back, the transfer of occupancy notice had been replaced with a new one, this time stamped by the county sheriff's department. I had 24 hours to leave. My house, my life, all gone. But as I packed my last box, I noticed something wedged under the baseboard, a small, folded envelope covered in dust. Inside was a key and a note. It said, "If you want answers, go to lot 17B. That night, I drove across the street again. The vacant house stood silent in the dark. I unlocked the door with the key, and this time it opened. Inside, the air smelled of fresh paint and damp concrete, but the foyer wasn't empty anymore. Rows of filing cabinets lined the walls. Each drawer labeled with names, my neighbors' names. Grace, the Redwoods, dozens of others. Inside the drawers were forged deeds, IDs, and fake transfer letters, every document needed to make a legal sale. And at the center of it all, a large whiteboard covered in red lines connecting addresses, names, and one company at the top. Porter Development Group. Daniel's name appeared multiple times, not as a buyer but as an agent. My stomach turned. He'd played me. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, careful. I turned and there he was. Daniel. He looked calm, holding something in his hand, a phone. I told you to stop digging, he said softly. You were supposed to move out quietly. Why? I demanded. Why me? Why any of this? He smiled faintly. Because nobody ever questions paperwork. You make a digital trail look clean and the system obeys. You're just another form on a desk. You ruin lives, I said. He stepped closer. No, Michael, I built a business. For a moment, the silence between us was electric. Then he pocketed the phone and added, but don't worry, you'll get your compensation. You already signed it. I clenched my fists. I never. And then I saw it, on the desk behind him, a fresh set of papers, my name, my signature. This time it wasn't just a property deed, it was a power of attorney form. They hadn't just stolen my house. They'd taken control of me. Daniel turned toward the door. Walk away, Michael, he said, this is bigger than you. But I couldn't, not anymore. As he stepped outside, I noticed something glinting in his jacket pocket, the corner of a badge. And not a fake one. The word INVESTIGATIONS was engraved on the edge. Daniel Porter wasn't just a fraudster. He was law enforcement. When I realized what that badge meant, everything inside me went numb. Daniel Porter wasn't just some scammer or real estate con artist. He was part of the system, the one that was supposed to protect me. And if he was law enforcement, then this entire thing, the sale, the notices, the surveillance, it wasn't just a crime. It was sanctioned. I didn't run that night. I stayed in that empty house, surrounded by the boxes of forged documents, staring at the web of names on the wall. Every line connected back to one source, Porter Development Group. But below that name, in faded ink, I noticed something smaller, almost hidden beneath the tangle of red strings. Municipal Property Reallocation Program. It sounded bureaucratic, harmless even, but my gut told me otherwise. At dawn, I slipped back into my own house, my home for now at least. I had less than 12 hours before the sheriff's department, Daniel's department, came to evict me. I started copying everything, the flash drives, the hidden files, every document I could find in that other house. If they were going to erase me, I was going to leave behind proof that I existed. But something strange happened as I was packing up. My power flickered, then went out completely. The air went still. When I looked out the window, I saw them, 3 black SUVs parked on the street. Men in plain clothes stepped out, no uniforms, no badges showing, but I recognized one of them instantly. Daniel. He walked right up my driveway, calm, collected, as if nothing had happened. I opened the door before he could knock. You're early, I said. He looked at me like I'd already lost. Michael, you shouldn't make this harder, the paperwork's done, you don't live here anymore. Then why are you here personally, I asked, why not send your deputies? For the first time he hesitated. Because you found lot 17B, he said. He took a step closer, you shouldn't have gone there. Why, I asked, because I found out the truth. He smiled faintly, because now you're part of it. He motioned to one of his men who walked toward my car, we'll take it from here. That was when I noticed the folder in Daniel's hand. He held it up just enough for me to see the heading. Asset Reclamation Confidential. I grabbed it before I could think. Reclamation, what is this? He didn't answer, but I saw enough, a list of names, my neighbors, each marked with a date. Those are the people you're targeting, aren't they? I said, you're taking our homes. He sighed, almost like he pitied me. These properties were never really yours, Michael, not in the way you think. You're all just temporary tenants, placeholders until the next phase. Next phase of what? He didn't respond, but his silence said enough. This wasn't about profit, it was control. I ran upstairs and grabbed the flash drives from my desk. When I came back down, Daniel and his men were gone. But a new notice was taped to the front door. This one was stamped in red ink. Immediate repossession, federal order. No local office, no signature, no date. They weren't just erasing my ownership, they were erasing the paper trail itself. I spent the rest of the day in my car, driving aimlessly, trying to figure out what to do next. Every direction I turned felt like another trap. When I finally stopped, it was near the edge of town, an old diner half empty, the kind of place no one pays attention to. As I sat there nursing a coffee, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Michael, a woman's voice said. It was shaky, nervous, but familiar. Who is this? I asked. It's Rebecca. I froze. The notary, the ghost. Where are you? I demanded. I can't tell you, she said quickly. They're watching everything, but you were right, it's not about your house, it's about the records. What records? They're using the municipal program to seize private properties under the pretense of redevelopment. They fake foreclosure documents, identity proofs, and digital deeds. Once the sale goes through, they funnel ownership to shell companies, all tied to the same investors. And Daniel, I asked. He runs enforcement, keeps it quiet, makes sure no one fights back. I could hear her breathing fast. Listen, there's one place they keep the originals, the ones they can't fake. The county records building, sub-level 2, that's where your real deed is. Then the line went dead. I didn't think, I just drove. By the time I reached the records building, it was after midnight. The parking lot was empty, the windows dark. I used the side entrance, the one for maintenance. The door was locked, but my old neighbor Grace once told me that the latch could be bypassed with a flathead screwdriver. She used to work there. That thought hit me like a cold slap. Grace worked there, she'd known things, seen things, that's why she warned me. Was she part of it too, or another victim? Inside, the building smelled of dust and old paper. The fluorescent lights flickered weakly overhead. I moved quietly, following the signs down to the lower levels. Sub-level 2. A steel door with a keypad. I tried the obvious codes 0, 1234, nothing. Then I noticed a small sticker on the frame, a maintenance tag, initials RL. Rebecca Lane. Her code. I entered her birth year, the one listed on the notary file, 1974. The light turned green, the lock clicked. Inside was a long, narrow room filled with metal shelves, rows of files, property deeds, legal archives. And there under H was mine. My original deed, stamped, dated, signed with my authentic signature. Proof. I pulled out my phone and started recording everything, the deed, the file room, the shelves. I was going to blow this wide open. That's when I heard the door slam behind me. The light flickered. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. I turned and saw him. Daniel. He was holding a flashlight, beam cutting through the dark. Do you have any idea what you've done? He said. I'm exposing you, I said. I have proof now. He shook his head slowly. No, Michael, you just walked into evidence storage. Do you know what that means? Before I could answer, he raised his phone, pressed something, and the lights went out completely. I could hear the sound of drawers slamming open, papers scattering, then the smell of gasoline. He was burning it. Destroying everything. I lunged forward, grabbing the nearest file, my deed, and bolted for the door. Daniel shouted something behind me, but I didn't stop. I ran up the stairwell, smoke already filling the air. By the time I reached the exit, flames were licking up the walls. I burst out into the cold night, coughing, clutching the file to my chest. Moments later, the fire alarm screamed through the night. The next morning, news broke. County Records building destroyed in fire, all archives lost. The report said it was an electrical malfunction. No mention of arson, no mention of Daniel. And when I checked the county site, my property, my house was gone. The address no longer existed in the database. It was like it had never been built. I drove back anyway, just to see it one last time. But when I turned down my street, my jaw dropped. Where my house once stood, the garden, the porch, everything, there was nothing but flattened dirt. No debris, no sign of demolition, just an empty lot with a metal sign stuck in the ground. Future site of Porter Community Estates. They had erased it completely. I stood there for hours, staring at the blank land where my life used to be. The neighbors' houses were gone too, Grace, the redwoods, everyone's, just foundations and silence. And parked at the end of the street, almost like a phantom, was the black sedan. The window rolled down. Daniel looked out at me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "You see, the system always wins, Michael. You can't fight what doesn't exist." I wanted to scream, to run at him, but all I could do was watch as he drove away, the dust curling behind him like smoke. That night I checked into a motel 2 towns over. I opened my bag, pulled out the file, the last surviving proof that I had ever owned that house. But when I unfolded it, I saw something new stamped at the bottom in red ink. Voided property REASSIGNED. They'd already changed it. I stared at the paper for a long time, then I turned on the TV. A local commercial played cheerful music, smiling families. A new housing development, modern homes, gated community. The logo appeared at the end. Porter Estates, a new beginning. And standing in the background of the promotional footage, barely noticeable, was a familiar figure. Grace, smiling, handing brochures to families. She hadn't disappeared, she'd switched sides. That's when I finally understood. This wasn't about houses, it was about power, the illusion of ownership. They could erase anyone, rewrite the records, replace the past with a prettier version of the truth. And no one would ever know. I left town the next morning, drove until the highway ended and the signal bars disappeared. I don't use my real name anymore, I pay cash, I don't stay anywhere for long. But sometimes, when I drive through a new town, I'll see construction crews laying foundations for another Porter community. And I wonder how many of those homes used to belong to people like me. People who thought the law would protect them. People who never realized they'd already been erased. Because that's the thing about losing your home. You don't just lose the walls or the roof. You lose the proof that you ever existed inside them. And once that's gone, you start to wonder if you ever really existed at all.